Hi there, it's Kevin with Conroe Games. We're in a different mountain range today. We are out actually looking for agates. One of my hobbies is I like to go and find rocks. And so we're up in this kind of cool little volcanic area where there are some really cool chalcedony and moss agates up here. So maybe we'll find some and show you it. But anyway, I thought I'd make another video. I think people are enjoying these kind of vlog videos where I'm out in the outdoors. And today's Sunday, so we're not open today at the store. This is our one day off we get per week. But I thought I'd talk more about shop and address some of the comments I had on my last video. I'm just blown away by the amount of views these videos are getting because I'm not even scripting them. I'm just kind of picking up the camera and shooting. But there were a lot of comments with kind of my take on what I call the underprinting and overprinting problems we're having with distribution. So the main point that I'm trying to come across is that the way that manufacturers and distributors are distributing is the main problem we're having right now with Magic the Gathering and Pokemon. Because I think what we're going through right now is a lot of misleading of where true demand, what I call true demand, is for these products. So Pokemon especially, I'm very worried about Pokemon because Pokemon, ooh, there's a cool lizard. See if you guys can see this lizard. Hey buddy, right down in there. Nice little fence lizard. I think we came across a rattlesnake too, so I have to kind of wash my feet here and watch the dogs so they don't get into rattlesnakes. But anyway, the Pokemon being distributed is, I still am under the assumption that there is so much Pokemon product that is not going to people that are actually what I call consuming, is being speculated and hoarded, scalped like crazy. And I'm worried that we're going to go through another Champions Path era where eventually it's just going to collapse. When these stores that have just popped up in the past year or two are finally going to come to the point where, you know, we can't make profit, there aren't any more buyers anymore. That's one thing I've noticed about Pokemon is the amount of people that are actually cracking packs is gone down a bit since the height of Surging Spark. But the sheer demand for things like Destined Rivals has gone up. And you actually see on TCG Player 2, a lot of the card sales lately for the chase cards like the Umbreons from Evolving Skies, those things have all stagnated. Like a lot of the older Pokemon is still doing well, but some of this newer stuff, I was looking at like Journey Together, especially, and Prismatic Evolution, a lot of those things have stagnated. So I think we are starting to get to a fatigue where buyers are just, you know, there's just, okay, now do I collect Destined Rivals? Didn't quite finish off my Journey Together, but Journey Together is kind of lackluster. And so we're coming to that point again. And that was like how fast it can turn is like when Pokemon Go was released, that was like the huge turning point of Pokemon. And then we just had a massive collapse. So I'm worried about going down that route. And I think that what I was talking about in my last video is one of the main causes of this is when we get through these speculative bubbles and we get all these YouTube channels popping up of how to start a Pokemon business, and we get like, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. There's not enough actually people eating. It's everyone cooking food here. It's everyone trying to make money on Pokemon, and eventually you have to find an end user for the product. And so that is why I will argue tooth and nail for the distribution model to really prioritize LGSs. Now, some of the comments in my last video about, well, Kevin, you're no different than, you know, a basement seller. So like, what makes you different with doing your Patreon service? And what makes you different than all these people trying to have access to distribution that just rip and ship or sell online? And I'd like to say there's a big distinction between people like me, and you'll never hear me complain about like RNG Games, who does a massive online operation. Because to me, that is someone that's put in the effort, the work to actually grow the games by creating a local game store in an atmosphere where people can actually look at product, play product, be part of a community. And that's exactly something we've established here at Conroe Games. And I'd also like to make a big distinction between something like my Discord, my Patreon, and a lot of these people that are just blowing things out on eBay and TCG Player. There is no communication between the seller and the buyer. There's no community whatsoever between the seller and the buyer, between these operations that just sell on eBay. They just post stuff up. It's like it literally is just drop shipping with another step. Like they have to physically carry the product for a second, and then it chucks up on these main sites, and then just wash their hands of it, and that's that. So one thing I like to say about my service is you're paying for my time. What I do is I speak directly cool little Jasper here. I'm going to keep this Jasper piece for sure. I speak directly with all of my patients. Oftentimes they ask me about games. I'm constantly looking up products. I'm constantly communicating with people. And it's the things that I store. That's what some of these comments kind of rub me the wrong way about, well, maybe, subscription models are just part of the problem too. Like at what point distinguish me from a brick and mortar that isn't doing an online service? Like, aren't I crushing them as well? And I would say yes. I would say to a point, but as I stated, like I'll never attack like Rob from RNG Games or anyone else that's they've kind of put in the effort of at least creating a local game store and having the ability to have access to products at this distribution price. So for example, we are a tiny, tiny store here in Richfield, Utah, but just yesterday I probably talked to at least 50 people one-on-one about Magic. You know how many deck lists I look at? How many customers come in and say, hey, can you take a look at my deck and make recommendations for my Commander deck? Or yesterday, I probably talked to a dozen people about board games where they came in, they were looking for a couple came in looking for a co-op game, and they told me what co-op games they like Pandemic, and can you recommend a game like this, and tell me about this. And another person came in looking for a storyline game. And, there's a lot of time and effort and energy that goes into maintaining a local game store and maintaining play space and maintaining the community that I think should have the privilege of that point to have access to distribution prices to then, do online sales as well, to actually incorporate both in the two. So that's like all I'm asking for is the bare minimum. So yes, I will rant, and like what really rubbed me the wrong way is when people like Pokey E were whining about rip and shippers and why in the world do rip and shippers have access to distributors? And some of the comments too defending him seem like, yeah, that sucks. You have to compete with these people. And I'm just sitting there baffled. I'm like, compete with what? You don't have a game store, dude. You do not have a space where you're interacting and communicating with people and growing the game. You are literally a drop shipper. So at what point does that make you any different than a rip and shipper? Like they're both, like in my opinion, actually rip and shippers do a more healthy thing for the game because they're still interacting with people wanting to open up packs, and it's kind of the entertainment value of opening up the packs. And at least like that is, there's another little step of communication and interaction. Whereas literally these people, like these YouTubers are driving me insane. Like all they're doing is like their content, the vast majority of their content is actually how to start a Pokemon business, how to start your own basement selling game. Like, geez, when is enough? Like when is it to the point where, like I said, there's just gonna be too many cooks and not enough people that actually are facilitating the game itself? And so again, I want to make that distinction. Of course, other LGSs have had local, like people in the Utah area also get mad at my business model too, because, I'm potentially taking away their customers that would come play at their store because they just rather, drive down to Richfield and pick up product for super cheap rather than play in like the Salt Lake area. So I understand like their qualms too. And I still do encourage people to play at their local game store. If you have a local game store, please support them, unless they're someone you can't support, because that is critical for these games going forward. And I've said this many times, like we've seen the board game industry go through this already, where they try to go online only because it's like, hey, we can cut out, two middlemen, we can cut out the distributors, we can cut out stores and sell directly on Amazon directly to consumers. And I believe it was Everdell was the game that got absolutely crushed when they tried to do that. They went from the number one selling game of like 2017 to not even top 10 after that, when they went to we don't need distributors. And it's funny because things like Everdell are now like exclusive to game stores, I believe. I believe they only sell through House Modi, which has a very, very strict policy through, selling only to brick and mortars. And, their sales have gone back up. And it's because all these local game stores become like a sales force. To explain. And like, again, I want to reiterate how much, like Friday, I spent the entire Friday helping people with standard decks. I was sitting down, what can I add to this deck? How can I make it better, Kevin? How can I to improve this deck? And I sat with them and I helped them pick out cards, and we had the cards here at the store for them to buy. And that whole thing I think is just so critical to the operation. So that is when I start making these complaints about these, Wizards of the Coast and Pokemon not really doing their due diligence, and even worse, when we are in this problem with distributors and are now just signing up anyone with a business license, especially these rip and shippers that are doing like 6 figures a month with distributors. They're having access to things like Destined Rivals, and all of those things are just gonna be immediately open on stream and on camera and shipped off to where, this is just gonna crush all of the stores that are putting the effort to actually facilitate the game. So like, we are a tiny operation. I'm still in the scope of things. I don't even have that many patrons. The amount of product that we actually move is actually minuscule on that end of the spectrum there with my online service. But we have put in the effort, we've put in the work, and we have created an LGS. So, as I stated, I have no qualms with people that want to grind and want to be able to flip cards. Like, do it. I did it before I had a local game store. My argument is that they should not have the same access, the same perks to the distribution network, to the models, as a game store, because there's just so much overhead, there's so much time, and there's so much energy that needs to be put into running and maintaining a store that actually cuts into your profits more than anything. And like, that's why I remember Rudy from Alpha Investments, when he used to have a WPN to get product, he started like a little store, and he got rid of it quick because he realized how unprofitable it was to maintain that local game store and not just get killed by the overhead. So what was the point? Now, he was in a much more urban area than I was, that I think he could have actually put some minimal effort to actually, hire people and actually run like a successful game store. But again, it just wasn't worth the time and the effort, whereas if you can have access through distribution. And again, I love Rudy. I think he's a great guy. He's always been nice to me. We've always had great interactions, but I will come out and say the guy should not have access to distribution. He should not have access to the same way that local game stores that have put in the effort to facilitate the games. I mean, the thing is, I give Rudy a little bit more pass than some of these other YouTubers too, because at least he does talk daily about the market, talk daily about things going on, where many of these other guys are really just, they're getting the eyes as quickly as possible to try to show people what their prices are so they can convert people. They basically just use YouTube as advertising to then get people over their platforms to buy, their cheap products and stuff. And so, like, again, these things are crushing. They're eventually going to crush the market, because I will talk till I'm blue in the face about the necessary model for local game stores to survive. If local game stores, even if they are only 20%, 10% of purchases of Pokemon and Magic, that is critical. That is critical, because those players then go take those cards and play like what I see some of the people at my store are. We have the people that come into game stores and they have friends that have never even stepped foot in games. So right now we have a lot of people that work at the prison. So we have a huge prison that's like 30 miles north of us, and it's a huge employer of a lot of the, especially males aged 20 to 30. There's not a lot of work here. Our economy is kind of in the dumps right now, because Richfield this area is trying to figure about how to transition from being kind of an energy sector. We had a lot of mines here, a lot of farming and mines, and those are drying up, and people are losing their jobs with that, because it's just like, there's just no coal left in these mines. And so one of the biggest employers now is the prison, because they've created this massive federal prison here. And this is a cool piece of jasper right there. Nice little brown piece of jasper. Anyway, so it employs a lot of them, and we have they started playing a ton of Magic over there. And they come in and buy, a few of them come in and buy cards, and then, even though I would say only 20% of them have set foot in my store, it still has facilitated the rest of the play at these prison guards that are actually playing the game. I don't know if I'm making sense here. I'm trying to focus on picking up rocks and looking for some cool ones in this stuff. I don't know if this volcanic stuff is going to have anything in it, but we'll definitely take a look. There's a cool little kind of Chalcedony piece in this volcanic stuff. But anyway, yeah. So I kind of wanted to clarify that of what I'm kind of trying to say about like where I'm really worried about and again, maybe I'm being super selfish. I'll even admit that I'm super selfish, because I still do feel, yes, a bit entitled to my allocations, because I had to put in a lot of work to be able to prove to Pokemon that we were actually doing events, had a game store with play space, had to take pictures, had to show them results, had to, jump through hoops to be able to get these allocations that are now no longer even being given to me. The store that I chose, or the distributor that I chose as my main Pokemon distributor, that's supposed to see allocations directly to that distributor from Pokemon, because I signed up as a store, and they are not giving me those allocations when I'm getting 2 boxes. That is a little bit, I have every right, I believe, to feel angry about that, because I have put in the effort. And these streamers, again, that are going to pay top dollar for things. I mean, that's the whole point, is I think the distributors, I'm really pissed, A, at manufacturers for not doing their due diligence, but now B, distributors are forgetting that their whole point of being a distributor was to make those margins that that's a cool, almost like black piece. This is just thick. I don't know, if this is Jasper or not. Anyway, where the distributors have forgotten it, that was their whole entire business model, is to make those small margins to distribute to stores. Like, they were the middleman between the manufacturers, then to the brick and mortars. And they've kind of forgotten their role. And now distributors are trying to basically be mass online sellers, and have created fake accounts on places like eBay and TCG Player. And you know, most of those, I think, they have the quantities of like 6,000 boxes of the latest, you know, they dump those on Destin Rivals. Those have got to be distributors. And you know, I'm not sure, not going to name names, not going to start any more wars than I already have with it, but this crap needs to end, because like, no store, like, there's not a store that's small enough in the country that actually has table space where 3 Destin Rivals booster boxes is ever going to be enough to fulfill that demand of any tiny small store. And no matter how good the margins are, if they 6x their money, if for somehow Destin Rivals goes up to $600 a box, if they were able to get 3 boxes and make $500 per box, they haven't even covered even anything of what their overhead and what they need to actually survive with retail space. And not only that, but it's labor costs right now. I've had a couple other stores like, Kevin, why in the world don't you have employees? Why in the world don't you have like a bigger operation where you can, and I'm like, geez, I've tried to make the numbers make sense of hiring an employee and scaling at an LGS, like the LGS model. And it's like, it's rough. It's rough at that point to even try to begin to justify or rationalize the cost of actually adding on that. So anyway, I don't know. That's where I kind of stand here. Like, again, I don't want to make war with a lot of these YouTubers and stuff. Like, especially I've never had any problems with, and then a lot of people will come out and say, Kevin, you're hypocritical. You're hypocritical. You're hypocritical. You're doing the same thing. You're dumping things online. But even my Patreon service, I'd make the argument this is totally different than a lot of these people that are just dumping product on TCG Player. Because like I said, I am, from Monday all the way to Thursday, that's all I was doing for, you know, 12 hours a day, was answering messages, was communicating back and forth with people, looking up products, trying to get Final Fantasy numbers for these people that have been with me. And it's a lot different than someone that just gets numbers from a distributor, immediately posts everything on TCG Player, eBay, washes their hands, and moves on from it. Eventually, these people are going to cannibalize the game so bad to where I think we're going to start seeing some dip in, like, even Pokemon, I think needs table space to play. I think that people underestimate how many people actually do play that game, especially if Pokemon Pocket going out are starting to get popular. I think eventually that's going to translate into people actually wanting to play the real game at the local game store level. So anyway, I'm always looking forward to your comments in the comment section below. If you are a store owner, you know, feel free to comment if you think that, you know, my business model is parasitical as well. I'm all ears. But at least with me, that is where I stand, is if you want to do this, if you want distribution, then put in the bare minimal effort. Get your table space to hold 18 players or whatever it is. Actually pony up and get a storefront and allow people from the public to come in and actually look at games and buy games and purchase it in person. And then you can sell online to your heart's content. Like I said, if anyone wants to follow a business model that I think is sustainable and healthy to game, look at Rob from RNG Games. He's done it perfectly. Like, I know his sales are probably 95%, probably 99% at this point online, but at least he's ponied up and he started a local game store, and he kind of curates that community. He continues to run events, and that guy has paid his dues, and he's done his, he deserves it at that point. So anyway, I am going to continue to kind of go down these gullies and see if we can get into some, because in this area there's some cool stuff called, it's like, I don't know if we call it plume agate or moss agate. And it's really, really tough to find because you don't, it's on this rock that's kind of soft, and you have to break into the softer rock, and then underneath will be some harder rock, and it'll be some really, really cool agates. But there's some awesome jasper that I'm probably going to pick up from this little volcanic slide and take it home and polish it. But if you guys are interested in kind of my hobbies here, I'll have to show you kind of some of my rock collection. Yeah, I'm an old man with old man hobbies here, but this will be kind of fun. We'll have to look into these rocks and see what we can find. Anyway, like I said, I don't want to get too whiny and too ranty with stuff. I felt that there were these last few videos, there's definitely like a need for me to address what I kind of mean by the supply chain issues we've having, and give my thoughts and opinions on, you know, where I think it should go forward. So in summary, again, I really hope that Wizard of the Coast and Pokemon will do their due diligence, start weeding off all. I know Lorcana, so there is some, like, Lorcana's getting super upset. They found a lot of stores that are just immediately selling promos online, and Star Wars Unlimited. That's another one that are going to try to crack down and try to figure out these stores that are just like, you know, taking everything, not running events, and just like posting everything online. So like our Star Wars has been really, really low lately. Like we haven't had people coming in and playing. So I still have all of my promos though. I haven't sold them online. They're going to go out to people who actually come in and play this stinking game. Same thing with all of our Wizard cards that come in. We give them out every Friday. We open up the prize packs and we give them out. We do a free standard, and that's kind of the prize that is given out, is all the promos that come in from Wizard of the Coast. So yeah, just that's all I ask. That's all I ask, that people want to get into this industry and want access to distribution, then pony up. Do your minimal effort, and then I won't complain whatsoever. You can have access to distribution all you want. The rest of them, maybe find a different business model. Like again, at this point, you're not, like, what are you contributing at this point? As like, at this point, any old drop shipper can do the exact same thing. I respect the grind, but I don't know. It's just like we said, does Nike do this? Does Nike allow anybody to sell shoes out of their basement? Do auto parts sell, like, okay, you can just sell auto parts out of your basement, or they go through, you know, places that actually have to have the licensing and the you know, put up the minimal effort. It's like, I don't know why this industry has moved away from, like, all these other industries has come back and really started to police it to make sure that these Main Street can survive, that the brick and mortars can survive, because it's vital that people have a place that they can actually, like I said, every local game store is like having a ton of sales force for every one of these games to help, you know, represent these games and cultivate these games and curate these games and make sure that the games are healthy and actually being played, which I think is still pivotal. Anyway, that's what I got. We're gonna, again, like I said, look at these. This is what's so cool about Utah. This is just a random, these hills that are outside of Salina, Utah, that are actually just full of, I mean, they're not the prettiest. Like, definitely I like the area that I'm at, where I live over in the Provence, a lot more than these kind of mud hills. I don't know exactly how they're formed. I'm not a geologist, so, and some geologists can kind of comment of how these are formed. But anyway, it kind of mixes with this a lot of gypsum and volcanic here, and it creates some cool areas for some cool rocks. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Maybe I'll do a full rock tumbling or rock hounding video sometime in the future. Thanks for watching.